The first episode of Love and Death begins on the tragic day of the occurrence, June 13, 1980. The Gore family residence's bathroom is covered in bloodstains. A flashback transports the audience to a Sunday service at the Methodist Church of Lucas in Wylie, Texas, in September 1978, where the choir performs a hymn before the congregation gathers for lunch. The choir members laud Pat Montgomery for having a lovely voice. Candace, also known as Candy Montgomery, Pat's wife, is seated at the table. The gang talks about the volleyball match that will take place in the chapel, and Allan Gore says that everyone on the squad needs to pull together and defeat their opponents. After lunch, Betty Gore, Allan's wife, leaves for home, and they make out. They're trying for their second child. So Betty is telling Allan to do it her way. The directions appear to aggravate Allan, yet he chooses to go. Nevertheless, Pastor Jackie visits Candy in the interim and informs her that she is divorcing her husband. Candy lifts Jackie's spirits as she deals with her fears about being a single woman pastor. Betty is upset over not being able to conceive as quickly as she had wanted, and Allan is dealing with his own set of issues. The following Sunday, when the previous week has flown by, the congregation reunites for their volleyball match after hearing the breaking news of Jackie's divorce at church. Pat and Betty are spectators in the stands as Candy and Allan compete on the same squad. In an uncomfortable exchange, Pat congratulates Betty on her pregnancy even though Betty hadn't revealed it to anyone. During the match, Candy is unintentionally knocked over, and Allan assists her in getting back up. Allan suddenly appears to be taking Candy because of a change in the air. Candy tells the esthetician that she thought Allan smelled like sex when she and Sherry go out for drinks that night. That a man with Allan's appearance could make Candy hot is ludicrous, in Sherry's opinion. Candy claims she wouldn't mind having a relationship with someone like Allan, because Candy was never able to develop love for him due to the way he appeared and behaved. Candy asserts that she is unhappy in her marriage, and adds that now looked like the appropriate time to spice things up. Days pass, and Candy notices that she has random thoughts about Allan throughout the day, whether it be while watching movies with her family or taking a creative writing class. Candy composes a poem in which she expresses a desire. Candy waits in her car one evening after choir practice to light up. Allan is seen getting into the automobile next to hers while she watches. As Candy exits, he stops in and invites him to talk. She enters his vehicle and confesses her desire to tell him how she feels about him. After hearing this information, Allan does not respond, and the two part ways. Candy talks to Sherry about the encounter and how she thought Allan's lack of interest in her was strange, but throughout the day, Allan notices that his thoughts about Candy are much more frequent. Betty becomes more and more irritated each day in the Gore family home, which causes her and Allan to argue more. However, it also appears as though Pat and Candy's marriage is going through some rough patches. As a result, Candy assumes that Pat has lost interest in her. The following day, Allan mulls over whether to phone Candy from work. After the core council meeting at the chapel, Candy notices Allan, another team member, catching her eye in passing. That evening, after another volleyball match, Sherry, Candy, and Allan leave, with Allan requesting to speak with Candy. She invites him into her car, where they talk about the potential for a liaison. The request shocks Allan, who recalls the time Betty had an affair and how it made him feel. Candy is horrified to find that Betty had an extramarital affair with Allan, but the two feel it is only right for them to keep their marriages in mind and keep themselves pure. Allan reveals that Betty was pregnant and that cheating on her would be extremely unjust to the child. Candy says she's sorry for asking and that all she wanted was sex. Allan gives her a quick kiss on the lips before exiting the vehicle. The following day, Candy informs Sherry about the kiss and makes a vow not to bring it up with Allan again. Allan runs across Candy while walking the Montgomery children home on Halloween night, and strikes up a lengthy conversation with her. Jackie informs Candy the following day that she was changing her life and accepting a job that had been offered to her. According to her, the church will welcome a new younger pastor who will encourage young couples to join the membership. Candy is devastated by the loss of her friend, but she is taken aback when Allan calls to schedule a lunch meeting. Candy's existence as a stay-at-home mom feels meaningless and devoid of any motivation for her to become a better wife and mother, which leads Jackie to uncover that Candy was considering having an affair. After her marriage failed for identical reasons, Jackie tries to persuade her buddy not to do anything similar. The pastor does discover, though, that Candy had made up her mind to have an affair with someone. The following day, Allan and Candy have lunch together and discuss their future liaison. They decide that it would be wise to consider their choice carefully before acting. Allan and Candy each compile lists of benefits and drawbacks for and against having extramarital affairs throughout the course of the following few weeks. At their meeting at the Montgomery home, Allan and Candy establish their code of conduct for the relationship, emphasizing the importance of calling it quits as soon as one of them develops feelings beyond just sex. On December 12, 1978, they both decide to meet up in a motel outside of town to initiate their first relationship. Candy wants to cuddle up to Pat before the relationship begins, but it seems like he is blind to her signs. Candy gets ready for the connection and chooses a motel outside of town for their first encounter. Even though she is hesitant, she puts on a nightgown, calls Allan, and asks him to come to the motel. Before entering the motel room, Allan makes an effort to relax himself. However, after he shows up, they have lunch and talk. Allan acknowledges how much he would enjoy reading, something Candy's students had produced. Candy thinks back to the time Pat had claimed to have read her short work, and she contrasts her spouse with Allan. The first time they hook up is in the hotel room after they make out. As the episode comes to a close, Candy is astonished by how fantastic the sex is and rushes to take a shower to avoid smelling like Allan.